Lie to me? Watch how I deport you. So I work in customer support for a mobile network provider. The way our company works is that after training, you enter a 1-month testing period where you answer phone calls under close supervision. At the end of the testing period, they either let you go or transfer you to a permanent position on one of the teams. I was a few days away from the end of the testing period when I get one heck of a phone call. I spent more than an hour on that one. It hurt my final score at the end of the month. The customer told a tall tale about how when she was trying to pay her debt to the company, she racked hundreds of shekels worth of debt in unincluded uses. The sales representative was rude to her and refused to let her pay, so she took a picture of him and left. The reason the call took so long is because she kept telling the story out of order, adding and changing details and going on tangents and rants. It was very difficult to get the story straight. I felt like a detective trying to piece together the clues into what actually happened. Every time I read the story back to her chronologically, she added or changed something in the middle or went on a tangent about how she's a polite British woman and we shouldn't hire people like that representative to represent our company. Eventually, I got her to settle down on a version of what happened. I looked through the records and saw that according to the representative, who was a lot more concise than her, she was the one being rude, yelling at him in English, a language he barely spoke, and taking his picture without his consent. I didn't tell her that. I just politely instructed her on how to pay her debt via the phone. She sounded nervous. I told her that until the debt is paid I cannot make the changes in the account, including adding a report. So reluctantly she gave me her credit card details and the debt was paid in full. I reported on what she told me and moved it along to my superiors. A few days later my testing period was over, and despite the tragedy of a call I aced it and got transferred to the illustrious email department, which is what I wanted. It's much more chill here and I can work at my own pace, not having to rely on the customer or the supervisor to work faster. Also, I could take my breaks whenever I felt like it. Everything is fine for a couple of weeks until I receive a new email telling a familiar tale. It was an enraged recounting of the same story I heard on the phone, except much more elaborate, with more details I never heard before, such as the involvement of another person, or that the representative assaulted the customer by trying to impede her exit from the store. The customer complained that she's been cheated, and expected the representative to be fired, but she saw him again at the store and was outraged. She was under the impression that her paying her debt meant we will listen to her and fire the representative. The email ends with the following demands: fire the representative, reimburse her for the money we stole from her under false pretenses, apologize to her in the form of extra compensation, and a personal phone call from a high-ranking manager. If we did not comply, the police will get involved. So I complied with the second part, and we got the police involved. You see, while reading the email I noticed that the address she emailed us from had a different surname than her account or the credit card information she provided. And lo and behold, the email was actually her real name, while the other details were fake. Turns out she was indeed a polite British woman, a British woman overstaying her visa for over a year that was now using a fake identity in Israel. How's that for false pretenses? Dumb. But, as we discovered later, she was also wanted for numerous accounts of fraud where she didn't pay for services or claim compensation for stories that later turned out to be false. Just like she tried to do with us. We called the police but they couldn't find her since the physical address she registered on our site was also fake. So we called her back to the store to apologize personally. She gladly obliged. The police were waiting for her. Neither I nor the representative she implicated were there that day, unfortunately, so we didn't get to see the look on her face. She was fined a hefty amount and then deported back to the UK.